Well, the second week of the campaign, polls show that Mark Carney and his Liberals are solidly ahead. But what effect will yesterday's tariff announcement have? Sebastien Dallaire is with the market research company Leger. Hi, Seb.
Hello.
So, how do you think Donald Trump's tariff announcement will affect support for Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre?
Well, every time Donald Trump takes a lot of the spotlight away from other parties and then brings it back on Mark Carney, it's good news for him. And that's what we're seeing. He's got the big advantage of being the prime minister in this time of crisis. So more crisis means more Mark Carney in the spotlight as a front runner. So it's a great position to be in. And the other advantage for Mark Carney is that it also takes him away from the campaign trail, where he's got the least amount of experience and where he can trip up a little bit more. So the past 2 days, what have we been talking about? We've been talking about Donald Trump and tariffs, threats to the Canadian economy, and this typically bodes well for Mark Carney. We'll see where it goes in the next few weeks. But for now, the past couple of days, there certainly have been helpful for Mark Carney.
It seems a lot of the time in this campaign, we keep talking about Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. At this point, is it a contest between two men as opposed to between two parties?
That's indeed how it starts to feel more and more. And it was partly as a result of the past 2 years where for Pierre Poilievre, it was a successful approach to really pit himself directly against Justin Trudeau as a one-on-one contest between two leaders, knowing that Justin Trudeau was unpopular in Canada, was very helpful for Pierre Poilievre. But now that his main foil is gone and we have a new person in Mark Carney, it's not as easy for Pierre Poilievre to play the same game, because Mark Carney's credentials are quite helpful to him in the current economic context. So this one-on-one matchup so far has not been as profitable to Pierre Poilievre.
So tell us about Leger's latest polling. How do the current numbers stand? If an election were held today, what would we see?
Well, if an election were held today with the Liberals at 44%, and again, if it were held today, always important, I don't want to go into predictions far down the road because that could change, but it would be a strong majority territory for the Liberals with these numbers. The Conservatives are not that far behind, but the main issue right now for the Conservatives is the Liberals are not splitting vote with the NDP, which is often something that generates more interesting vote splitting in certain ridings. In this case, the Liberals have such a big lead over the NDP that it's unlikely to play as big a role. And the Liberals are so strong right now in Ontario and in Quebec as well, in the Atlantic, that it makes the lead of the Conservatives in some other areas, some of the regions of the country, not as important.
But these numbers, how solid are these numbers for the two parties? Could they change very quickly?
We're still at a stage in the campaign where there's a significant chunk of voters who are uncertain. For the Conservatives, about 3/4 of voters are saying that they are set, their mind is set. And we've seen over the past few weeks that the Conservatives have been fairly stable. For the Liberals, it's about 2/3 who say their vote's final, which is, not as good as for the Conservatives, but much better than for other parties. And that's where it can get a bit scary. If you're the NDP, you're in single digits, as low as you've ever polled, and half of your voters are saying, I'm not sure yet. And for the Bloc, you also have a significant portion of their voters who are saying they're not sure. So it's probably a bit unnerving for parties that are not Liberal or Conservatives at this stage.
And what about the demographics, Seb? Who are the people supporting the Conservatives? Who are the people going to the Liberals?
We see some, there's been for now a long time a gender gap where the Liberals get, are viewed more favorably by women, Conservatives by men. So there's about a 10-point gap that's been holding steady, and that's what we're seeing now. And so women are more likely to support Mark Carney. But where there's a different dynamic from what we have measured in the past is right now at this stage. So older voters tend to be more favorable to the Liberal Party. So it bodes well for them because older voters have a higher tendency to go vote as well. So this is a dynamic we'll follow. Will the Liberal be able to maintain their lead with older voters? Is something we're going to look at. But the gaps are not that big. Generally speaking, the two parties are garnering a lot of support among most demographics.
Okay. Thank you very much for this, Seb, and we'll speak to you again next week.
Always a pleasure.